When Nicole Kidman stepped back into the public eye in early 2026 after months of speculation, paparazzi attention, and relentless headline buzz about her personal life, it was hard not to see the contrast between the narratives that once dominated tabloid pages and the grounded, reflective woman she presented in interviews and appearances. After 2 decades of being one half of one of Hollywood's most beloved couples, her divorce from Keith Urban, a union admired for its longevity and mutual respect, marked a seismic shift not only for fans but for Kidman herself. That shift, for her, has been one of the most challenging and transformative periods of her life. Kidman's separation from Urban was first publicly reported in late September 2025, after nearly 19 years of marriage. The news shocked many because on the surface the pair seemed like a rock-solid couple. They had weathered long stretches apart due to work commitments, raised 2 daughters together, maintained a largely private family life despite fame, and rarely let personal controversies overshadow their careers. Yet beneath that polished exterior, the pressures of 2 demanding careers and shifting personal needs had quietly reshaped the contours of their relationship. Kidman filed for divorce in Tennessee on September 30, 2025, citing irreconcilable differences, bringing an end to a marriage that had spanned almost 2 decades and had been held up as one of the more stable in Hollywood. In the months leading up to the split becoming public, Kidman's appearance at major fashion and cultural events hinted at a woman in transition. Instead of the polished Hollywood blankness that often accompanies celebrity announcements of personal upheaval, she showed moments of vulnerability and reinvention alike. At the Chanel Spring/Summer 2026 show during Paris Fashion Week, she appeared with her daughters Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, a visual symbol of the life that she was determined to anchor around her family even as her marriage was falling apart. Her choice to bring her children to such a high-profile event, and her comments on social media about enjoying that experience with them, communicated a message that resonated with many. She was not disappearing, she was evolving. After the public learned of the divorce filing, confirmation came that by January 2026 the divorce had been finalized. Given the level of public interest and media scrutiny, the speed and relative smoothness of that finalization was notable. Kidman and Urban reportedly agreed to jointly waive child and spousal support and worked out a custody arrangement that allowed the daughters to primarily reside with Kidman, reflecting not only their mutual respect but a deliberate attempt to protect their children from the worst of public scrutiny. The fact that both parents opted not to seek support from each other suggested that financial concerns were not central to their separation. Rather, it showed a prioritization of family stability above sensationalism. In interviews since the divorce became official, Kidman has spoken about her emotional state in a way that feels deliberately measured and honest. When she broke her silence in a March 2026 interview for Variety, she described her journey through the split with a candor that was devoid of bitterness but full of introspection. She said that the year prior, 2025, had been one of retreat and inner reflection, a period where she found herself in a shell as she navigated the reality of her life shifting beneath her. Rather than focus on the sensational headlines that had trailed her, she chose to emphasize the things she was most grateful for: her daughters and the time she has with them, and the way they are growing into suddenly women right before her eyes. Kidman underscored repeatedly that her priority has been to maintain a sense of family unity despite the end of her marriage. She stated plainly that she and Keith will continue to be a family, a statement that has been taken to mean that, despite the legally dissolved relationship, they remain committed to co-parenting their children with respect and care. This focus on family, positivity, and moving toward what is good strips away much of the gossip that has swirled around the divorce and grounds the conversation in something deeply human. It's clear that in navigating her post-divorce life, Kidman is intent on controlling her narrative in a way that aligns with her values. Where tabloids and rumor mills have circulated unfounded speculation, ranging from alleged affairs to personal motives, her own voice in reputable interviews has been consistent and centered. Rather than stoke controversy, she has chosen to articulate a message of resilience, continuity, and hope. Her focus on her daughters, her creative projects, and her own emotional growth suggests a woman not defined by the end of a marriage but by the life she continues to build beyond it. This approach has resonated with fans and peers alike because it is honest rather than performative. While some outlets have delved into unverified claims alleging deeper causes for the split, claims rooted more in gossip than substantiated fact, Kidman herself has not engaged with speculation in the public domain. What she has publicly discussed goes beyond the simple mechanics of divorce to touch on themes of self-discovery and acceptance. In interviews prior to the divorce announcement, she spoke about questioning her life's direction and the broader uncertainties that come with navigating one's 50s, a candid reflection that, in hindsight, seemed to foreshadow the enormous changes in her personal life. Beyond family and personal introspection, Kidman's timeline also shows that she remains professionally active and creatively engaged. She has several high-profile projects, including a much-anticipated television series Scarpetta for Prime Video, and a sequel to Practical Magic with Sandra Bullock. These roles reflect her continued stature as one of Hollywood's most bankable and versatile actresses. But what is striking is that her professional work has been framed not as a distraction from personal struggles, but as an extension of her creativity and purpose. In interviews promoting these projects, she speaks about them with a grounded enthusiasm that suggests her passion for storytelling remains a central part of her identity, even as her personal life undergoes transformation. Another subtle but meaningful development in Kidman's post-divorce narrative has been the way she interacts with media, not by courting drama but by holding firm to a sense of personal dignity. On talk shows, at premieres, and in candid conversations, her demeanor is composed, reflective, and occasionally playful. In fact, a recent appearance on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon became viral not because of any sensational revelation, but because viewers were charmed by the effervescent chemistry between Kidman and Fallon. This moment, far from overshadowing the seriousness of her personal transition, reminded the public of Kidman's approachable warmth, a quality that many feel humanizes her beyond the polished veneer of celebrity. Even how she marks personal milestones reflects this shift. On social media, Kidman's posts around holidays and personal celebrations, such as her first Valentine's Day after the divorce, carried nuanced messages of self-care and renewal rather than public lamentation. For example, her Happy Galentine's post with a heartfelt caption and a subtle tone communicated both independence and personal peace. This kind of message suggests that Kidman is actively reclaiming her narrative in a way that feels empowering rather than reactionary. Her approach hasn't just been internal. Those close to Kidman, whether friends, co-stars, or collaborators, have echoed a similar sentiment, that she is resilient, composed, and focused on what matters most. In Elle Australia, her daughter Sunday Rose described her mother as her biggest inspiration, pointing to how Kidman's creativity and work ethic influenced her own emerging path in the fashion world. The way Sunday Rose speaks about her mother isn't just boastful. It comes from a place of deep admiration, and reflects a family bond that remains strong despite the upheaval of divorce. Stepping back, Kidman's public evolution highlights a broader cultural moment around how women, particularly women in their 50s, navigate personal identity and emotional authenticity in the spotlight. Kidman's refusal to shrink from her age, her willingness to speak authentically about growth and uncertainty, and her prioritization of inner strength over external judgment speak loudly in a cultural climate that too often fixates on sensationalism and gossip. Her journey is not portrayed as a comeback narrative predicated on drama, nor is it framed as victory over adversity through superficial triumph. Rather, it is depicted as a slow and steady reclaiming of self, a thoughtful, grounded process that aligns with lifelong emotional growth rather than overnight transformation. What emerges most clearly from Kidman's post-divorce life is a refusal to let her story be defined by rupture alone. Yes, the end of a long marriage is life-altering. But rather than allowing that ending to eclipse the rest of her identity, Kidman has contextualized it within a broader narrative of continual self-rediscovery. She speaks openly about gratitude, about moving toward what's good, about keeping her family intact in a non-traditional sense. That perspective reframes divorce not as a cliff over which she has fallen, but as a turning point, one that, in its rawness, has allowed her to step more fully into her own emotional and professional world. In the end, Kidman's 2026, and perhaps beyond, is shaping up to be not a period of retreat from life, but one of reorientation toward what feels true and sustaining. She is not erasing the past, she is integrating it, along with everything she has learned about love, resilience, family, and identity, into a narrative that feels authentically her own. That story is not dramatic for drama's sake. It is rich because it embraces complexity, growth, and the courage to look forward with intentional optimism. And in a world that too often reduces personal upheaval to tabloid fodder, Kidman's path stands out precisely because it refuses to be reduced at all.